Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today we are going to be making the final speed build and the final video for Oasis Springs, and with that I'm introducing a brand new film to the Disney save. Today I'm going to be making Shrimporium from Raya and the Last Dragon. This is a boat restaurant and that's how it's going to function in the Disney save. They kind of live here, the characters do, for a little bit of the movie, and you can tell that the owner of the boat named Boone probably lives here as well, but I didn't want to make this a residential for like a random Raya character, and I'll kind of explain why momentarily. And we are in this like commercial strip that I've been working on, and you can see my other commercial lots completely surrounding this one, so I wanted to tie it all together with one final commercial themed lot and being another restaurant. But it really fits well aesthetically into this world if you sort of ignore the modern aspect of it, which for most worlds I would have to ignore anyway, and the fact that in the movie this boat would be sitting on like a larger lake of some kind, and I have had to recreate it in like this pond. But the way that I sort of like headcanonize this is that the owner of the ship, when they want to permanently make this a restaurant, they just dock it in a pond and it's sort of just been brought there, and then it is permanently servicing as a restaurant from this little pond in Oasis Springs rather than being on a larger lake area. There really aren't that many Sims packs that would have even given me the ability to make a floating restaurant boat on a larger body of water, because we don't really have water lots in The Sims 4 other than Sulani. And you could see back when I did Sulani, we were already stressed for space in that world as it was. I am hoping one of my future like wants for The Sims 4 is that we do get at least another expansion pack that adds a world with half water lots or water contributed lots that are sort of a part of like a bigger ocean, similar to how Sulani was done, so that we have more options and maybe I can change some things and go back and edit Sulani as well. I'm not saying, however, that I would move Shrimporium because I actually really think it fits super well here. So Raya is kind of a random one, right? Because I haven't done Raya anywhere in the Disney save so far yet, and it feels random in this world in the sense that everything else that I've done in this commercial strip is tied to another movie or the movie that was already done in the world so far. And then Raya kind of just like stands on its own. It's one random Raya lot in Oasis Springs. But the reason that I decided to do that, one, aesthetically, if you have seen Raya and the Last Dragon, this ship, it literally looks like it lives in Oasis Springs. It comes from an area in Raya that is like this barren, deserty, orangey, very natural, lots of rocks, with the deeper, darker kind of green mossed over water. It just aesthetically fits really well into Oasis Springs. It looked like a chunk of Oasis Springs minus the modern architecture, and maybe with a little bit more of like the coastal feel with the docks and everything that this boat would have really been posted on in the film, but nevertheless. The thing about Raya and the Last Dragon is that it comes up here and there when I am in the planning phases of the Disney save, because it is sort of a diverse movie in the aspect that it takes place across multiple locations, and each one of those locations feel very distinctly different from one another. Now, I haven't seen Raya and the Last Dragon in a while. I did rewatch some of it so that I could do today's build, but I didn't sit down and do like a dedicated rewatch of the movie, so I'm not going to be able to tell you like all of the names of the locations and everything. But if you've never seen it, you can kind of imagine it. I would sort of compare it to Avatar: The Last Airbender in the way that everything in the film feels like it has this Asian influence in the architecture, the food, the culture, the style of the characters. But when you are in the Water Nation or the Air Nation or the Earth Kingdom, they still feel very drastically different from one another. Different plants, colors being one of the big things, and then that like sense of elemental background, where I guess currently where Shrimporium is supposed to be would be some version of like maybe the Fire Nation, Earth Kingdom like border. If I remember correctly in the film, Raya is from this like almost air nomad-esque sort of palace, very light and airy and open to the elements, and then she also goes to this one location that's very jungly that would fit really well in Salvadorada. So all that to say that whenever we plan out a world for the Disney save, Raya comes up here and there, but it never feels like it would fit very point blank into any one world, at least none that we have talked about so far. It could possibly go into Tomi a bit, but I feel like there are other candidates for things that could go there considering the world size. And I think that what's going to end up happening with Raya is that I'm going to end up breaking up some of the locations and putting them here and there as like fillers throughout the Disney save. And this works for two reasons. One, because they are physically within distance of one another, so it feels very like spread out in the way that it would be from the movie as well. And it helps me, especially for these larger worlds where I just needed one more filler idea, especially like a commercial idea to go in this strip. And I had exhausted all of the ideas that I could personally think of and my patrons had helped come up with as well for the movies that were already in existence here. So it really just worked out to do one final restaurant. This is going to be a little bit of a smaller restaurant. There's going to be 2 tables on the main platform where you would probably mostly want to eat if you wanted to experience like the full boat dining. But I did think that ultimately that was a little bit small, and I also was thinking that this might be like a more permanent location for Shrimporium, so I decided to add a couple of huts around this little pond area that do have some additional seating arrangements as well as a bathroom. This does end up being truly the final thing that you're going to see of Oasis Springs in terms of anything other than a tour video. I'm not making any Raya characters right now because I don't know if I will eventually place all of the characters, or I would say most of the characters, into a future world, and I'm just not planning on making the characters until I have maybe some residentials and things to go along with it. So although it might have made sense to do like a towny version of Boone, who is the child teen-ish character that kind of runs and operates this restaurant, it didn't feel right to do it right now in the set of videos and everything that I have going on. So I'm closing out Oasis Springs. However, everybody that works at the restaurant, the way that their outfits have been designed are based after his outfit from the movie. So it is kind of inspired by him in that way. And hopefully at some point I will create him and add him into the save file. Although I will just mention, I think that he's supposed to be a child, so he couldn't technically own the restaurant, I don't believe. And to be honest, I really would like to make Raya. She is absolutely beautiful, and I've been working through like the complete lineup of the Disney princesses for a really long time, and she is one that is currently missing, along with some classics, of course. And I would love to add her to my roster, but again, it just didn't feel right because I might do more with Raya at a later time. This, however, feels correct to do, at least for right now. Now, to get into the build, this is actually a really simple thing to do and create if you want to make something similar in your save file. It completely functions. I know it looks like it wouldn't, but really the trick is that you just have to, first you have to use some debug pieces. So the ship itself is a debug item. I do believe it comes with for rent, possibly. It's sized up a couple times so that it really could cover like the full platform piece that I'm placing underneath it. And then that ship piece is placed in the basement, and then I've used Tool to raise it up to the same level as the platform where the Sims will actually be walking on. That way the game does not really acknowledge that the boat is there, but you can physically see it. And so the Sims really just think that they're walking on the platform that I've created underneath, and then everything is placed on that platform. So they think that they're just on some like platform in the middle of this little pond area, but to us it looks like a boat. And cool thing in live mode when I was playtesting this, because the object is a boat and it is sort of programmed to be in the water already, it does hover a little bit and kind of bob in the water, which was a cool animation to see in game. Shrimporium is supposed to be a fishing boat, and they do show some food items that the restaurant would serve in the movie. However, pretty much none of what they showed was going to translate over to the game, unfortunately. We just don't have corresponding dishes. I had them written down at the time, but I can't remember exactly what was mentioned in the film now. It's been a few weeks since I've done this build, but they were basically rice and shrimp based dishes, and you would be surprised how much we're lacking those, generally speaking, in terms of what we do have available in the game. At the end of the video, I'll be showing the staff outfits as well as the menu that I ended up going with. But I will say I tweaked the menu a little bit from the video today. So if you see me adding some dishes that are not necessarily super culturally Asian inspired, I changed that after with a little bit more research, just kind of checking what each one of the dishes that I had originally picked were, and then taking some away and maybe adding some new ones. The problem is I wanted to like culturally represent some Asian food in this build, but I also don't have a ton of options. And specifically speaking, this boat really would only sell shrimp. They would catch shrimp daily and sell variations of shrimp and rice dishes. And I thought that that would be pretty easy, but when it came to actually picking out the menu, I realized that I didn't have a ton of choices for things like that. So I ended up leaning more towards anything that physically showed shrimp in the pictures of what it was, but then some of them I wasn't familiar with what that dish was. And then when I later researched it, I realized that it might have been like more of an Italian dish or more of something else, and then ended up removing it and replacing it with other things. I did also put popcorn shrimp on the menu, and obviously I know that that is not something that would be necessarily relevant here, but it is one of the only options that we have that's just like a straight up named shrimp dish in the catalog, so you're gonna have to excuse me for that one, just because I wanted this place to at least sell one very clear-cut shrimp dish. And at the end of the video, one of the items that I throw into the pond area, because I thought to myself, well, maybe they even catch the fresh seafood from this pond every single day. We have a debug item that comes from Sulani, and it's like a big round fishing net, and I never really got an opportunity to use it back when I was building in Sulani, so it was cool to finally get an opportunity to place it here. It doesn't really function as far as I'm aware, but it's something that makes a lot of sense to have sort of like a netted trapped area for fishing up seafood specifically. I spent a lot of time looking at Shrimporium and like the boat itself to try to pull out as many details as possible and try to make this shape as accurate as possible by using lots of like larger sculptural pieces, as well as just getting the general layout correct. One thing that is a little bit tricky and I think would have made this even better, but I sort of had to like go with what we already had in game, is that the awning area where the characters mostly sit to eat is covered by some kind of an in-universe Raya creature shell as like the roof. And I tried to recreate it with roof pieces, but it doesn't really give the same effect. I thought about going through the debug catalog and really looking and seeing if I could find something that was sort of similarly shaped and using it over that awning area in place of a roof. But the problem with doing stuff like that is that you actually want to see when you're playing here. And so roofs are pre-programmed into the game to disappear when you move the wall down so that you can see your sim eating and playing on the platform. And when you put a lot of large clustered items on the roof like that, you have to be careful about what layers you're placing them on and making sure that they also come down when you want them to so that you can see into the area. So it was just one of those things that it would have been nice to do, but I'm also okay with how I ultimately ended up going about it. There is lots of for rent here. You can see a ton of it in like the fishing decor and some of the lanterns and things like that. Those come from City Living as well. The fruit baskets, some of the jungle escape vases, and the for rent bowls, stuff like that. There were a set of wall hanging hats and baskets that come from for rent. And back when we got it, one of the hat items in that piece immediately reminded me of Raya, which is such a shame that we didn't actually get an item like that in Create a Sim, because of course her hat is going to be kind of hard to replicate considering that we just don't have anything like it as far as I'm currently aware in the cast catalog, but we can at least represent it in that sort of way. And I did hang that piece on the back of the boat. And then when I do the huts here momentarily, the roofs are all inspired by Raya's hat as well, with the same sort of like wicker style and similar shape. I will say something that I sort of considered when making Shrimporium. I don't think this is supposed to be the most fine dining experience that you've ever had. It's a little bit busted, dusted, crusted in a good way. I'm sure that the food that's served here would be very, very good and authentic, but at the same time, you can tell that Boone, he's on his own. First of all, I believe in the film he describes that he might be an orphan, so this is probably like an inherited family business of some kind, or maybe something that he managed to acquire to sustain himself post his parents leaving his life. But he's still just a child. He doesn't have staff on the boat. It looks like the ship is not necessarily meant for traveling or other waters. He even mentions in the movie that the boat is not meant to like cart people around, because Raya tries to hire him to take her to a new location with the boat, and he's like, yeah, no, I dock here. This is where the boat stays. So it's not the most high quality up-kept boat, and so we might get away with using some things that are not as nice, or maybe some more like weathered, watered down colors in terms of like the wood grain textures, some of those like Western pack, the horses pack stuff that makes it look just a little bit more used and broken in, like not necessarily bad quality, just definitely used. Unfortunately for me, when making these very creative restaurants, like doing this whole boat restaurant thing, very interesting, but I do still have to use that super super modern, kind of ugly dining chef station that comes with Dine Out, and we only got like 3 or 4 colors of that item, and that's it. And there's 2 of them. One has like a top upper like awning piece that you can put into a wall, and the other one is just meant to stand alone, and those are the only 2 options. And obviously, because that pack is the restaurant pack, we have never gotten another object even close to that one that would function in the same capacity. Like, you can't just put down a grill and use that as like the chef station, unfortunately. That would be kind of a cool update actually that I would really prefer. So you have to use one of those objects, and they completely stand out. They do not look like they fit into this build at all. I turned it to the best color swatch that was possibly available, and you just have to sort of like ignore it. Hopefully I'm distracting you with all of the other very, very nice decor from For Rent and the subtle fish and seafood references and the lanterns and things like that. That will hopefully make up for the lack of what I'm able to control in terms of the items that need to be used for the restaurant. I do want to mention, unfortunately, if you want Shrimporium right now or the previous build I did, which I ended up naming, and thank you guys all so much for the name suggestions. I was having such a hard time picking out a name for Jasmine's Cat Cafe, and I got so many good recommendations. It was really hard to pick, but I did pick one. Whoever left the comment Paradise Cafe, thank you so much. I loved that one, and I knew right away when I saw it that that was the one. If you want Paradise Cafe or Shrimporium, you're gonna kind of have to wait for a little bit. I made kind of a mistake. I did not upload them to the gallery before The Sims put out the pre-pack patch, the new pack being The Sims 4 Businesses and Hobbies. I am really, really nervous about the new systems that they're putting in place for that pack, being the similarly styled UI that they introduced with For Rent on how you can like block out apartments. They're using sort of a similar thing to make these like multi-purpose lots, which is a great thing. Like, multi-purpose lots are something that I have been speaking about for years. The Sims community has wanted for such a long time. This is a really, really big deal and something that has been so highly requested, and something I will really, really use in the Disney save, kind of depending on the details of like how they fleshed it out. But if you're not currently aware of kind of the state of the game and some things that have been going on in the Sims 4 community, it's been pretty well known, and I've been complaining about this personally for well over a year, that For Rent introduced a pretty bad corruption to The Sims 4. If you go back to my videos all the way from, I think it might have even been 2 Decembers ago at this point, when they did the For Rent pre-pack patch, I immediately noticed a big issue and a problem in my game that keeps happening no matter if I start a new save or if I play in my old ones or if I use the Disney save, that being endless loading screens. I've been talking about this for a really long time, so if you're a regular viewer of mine, this is sort of redundant. But what isn't redundant is that now more of the community is recognizing that this is a really big problem, and the Sims themselves have finally come out and acknowledged that For Rent is specifically causing corruption in The Sims 4 and corrupting saves. One of the ways that you know that this is possibly happening to your save file is that the game will start like culling your builds, which is like auto deleting without asking you, getting rid of some of your Sims, endless loading screens. There's a specific error code that can and will pop up that lets you know that it's happening as well, and just generally like poor performance. There's a whole thread that you could go and look at that talks about this, and the other day on Twitter, The Sims finally acknowledged that it exists at least, which is a good step in the right direction. But I say all of this to say that I knew when For Rent came out that they put something into the code of this game that was breaking something very deep in the code and slowly breaking the game. And I even remember talking to my husband about this a couple months ago. I said, and I quote, "This is going to continue to be a really small problem until one day it's a big problem and it becomes so big that they can't ignore it anymore." There's no way that The Sims didn't know for almost 2 years that this was happening. It was just something that I think they were waiting to see how big of an issue it was going to be, because I will say before a few months ago, it was really just bigger builders like me that were having this issue, where I like to do these really big, highly detailed lots with lots of things, and people were saying, well, keep your save files smaller, well, don't use as many objects. To which I say, the game is designed to use the thing, right? So let's not design a game that you can create endless things, endless possibility, build whatever you want, a skyscraper, a mansion, a treehouse, whatever you want, you can make, create millions of Sims, hundreds of things, and then say, well, don't use all of it. That's That's crazy. Who would use all of it? Because that's too much. Why is it too much? We've got a game and it's supposed to function, and you sell it as if it functions. It needs to work the way that it's being described. So now I think it's getting to the point that it is really affecting a large part of the community, and they have had to make a statement about it. They're looking into it, is what they've said. And with that being said, I think one of the things that broke the game was the introduction of apartments and that system where you can mark out where the apartment is. And they're now bringing that in the second form of the dual lot type. So I'm really nervous about that. I have turned off updates as of right now, which means I'm not online currently, so I can't upload anything to the gallery. I can't buy new packs. I can't do any of that stuff, but it's all just to save the Disney save and kind of like watch and see what's going to happen. Because one thing that really messed me up last time is that I was in the middle of making the Disney Save 2.0 when the For Rent patch came out, and it completely destroyed my save file, my computer, everything. It was a nightmare. And I just have this little feeling, and I really hope I'm not right, but my warning to the community and my people that watch me is that I think something similar is coming, unfortunately, with this expansion pack. And I would recommend, if you have a legacy save, of course, back it up. I have tons of backups of the Disney save, so you don't have to worry about anything regarding me, but back up your personal saves. And also, if you're like me and you just kind of want to wait it out and watch and see and wait for the hot patches and wait to see who is saying what is happening to their saves and you don't want it to be your save, just don't update for a little while. You can turn it off in Origin. There is a button in the top left-hand corner and you can hit go offline and then just don't update. Sorry, that is from the EA app, not from Origin. You can tell I've been playing for a very long time. Like I said, I hope that it's not true. I hope that this pack comes out and it's beautiful and flawless and very fleshed out, and I am excited for the things that are coming in the pack and the new world, of course, but it is scary considering what happened before and the similarities between the packs in terms of UI. So I'm just giving a little bit of a warning for my community here. Now, to close out the video today, of course, you'll see me picking out the menu. Just a reminder, I did change it a little bit, so if you think some of my choices are a little wonky, I probably thought that way too after the video was ended, so I did go back and edit them so that they were a little bit more culturally respectful to specifically like some of the Asian recipes that we have available in game, and a good opportunity to use them as well. Some of the stuff from Mount Komorebi, but also I think a little bit more so the For Rent dishes that were potentially added. Fresh shrimp, fresh seafood, no fish. Like I'm talking about like shellfish specifically. And then for the desserts, I thought fruit, because really he didn't mention anything regarding a dessert dish, but I figured, and you can see in the background in the movie that he does have fresh fruit on board, so I figured we could get away with something like that in regards to some desserts. And then the staff will be dressed up inspired by Boone with a little bit of inspiration from Raya as well, and just kind of like the things that I think I would lean into in the future when I make the characters from Raya. And we are going to do like Raya, Sisu, all of the main characters. I just don't know where they're going yet, so we're going to put a pause on that. Now, if you don't know, like if you haven't been staying late into some of my other videos, my next world is actually going to be a couple of world renos followed by Ravenwood. So Ravenwood will be kind of on the roster coming up as the 10th Disney Save world. However, some stuff that's going into Ravenwood requires me to change some things about previous worlds, because some of the things in the previous worlds are going into Ravenwood, and then some of them I just need to kind of like alter and change to put them into a different world for those things to then get moved to Ravenwood, if that makes sense. So I'll be doing, I think it is 3 mini world renos with a couple of changes to each world. Nothing crazy. The longest one is going to be the first world, which is Willow Creek, is getting some changes. That will be where the most time is spent before we get to Ravenwood. And then once we get through the 3 mini world renos, we'll do Ravenwood. And I'm very excited about that movie. We are currently kind of planning that out in the Patreon right now. So if you want to be a part of that, consider joining and supporting me over there. You get access to my private Discord, and it gives you the ability to be a part of the community where we plan everything and participate and see early works in progress of all that stuff. Vote in polls, give your ideas. A lot of what patrons pick and say really, really heavily influences the save, and I definitely couldn't make everything that I do without them. They pick like so many things and help me along the way, so much more than you guys probably even realize. So if you want to be a part of that, my Patreon is linked down below so you can kind of check it out and see what you think of it. I'll give away some spoilers and some things now. I do think Ravenwood is going to be a mix of like really, really old school classic Disney films, like ones that are, I would say leaning more towards like the early era of Disney or earlier eras of Disney, and then some that are more like concrete classics. One being Snow White. Snow White is going to have a definite part in Ravenwood, and it is one of the reasons why I have to do some world renos and some changes, because I already included Snow White in Hemford on Bagley, and it was always intended to stay there, but I think that we're gonna do much more with it now that we have Ravenwood, and I want to expand on it a little bit more, so it might make sense to move some of that stuff previously done over into Ravenwood and then fill in those spots for Hemford on Bagley. But that's going to be a few worlds from now, if that makes sense. I'm doing a world reno starting first with Willow Creek, and those videos will be coming out pretty much immediately after we get the tour video for Oasis Springs, which will be up very, very soon. The reason I took a bit of a break and I haven't posted a video in a few weeks is because I was working on the Disney Save 2.0, and if you stayed this late in the video, here's your little treat. It's already up and available for download. So Disney Save 2.2, the Oasis Springs patch, already completed, done, ready to go. That is a way that you could actually get your hands on Paradise Cafe and Shrimporium if you wanted it. If you go down below to click the link for the download, it is going to bring you to my Patreon, but you do not have to be a patron to download the Disney Save. It's completely free. It's a public release. But if you want to wait until the tour video, I'm going to go over everything and show all the little details, and everyone's got their jobs and their outfits and their clubs and hobbies and things, and I'm excited to show you guys everything all finalized and working. It took so long to put it all together and get everything finalized for this version of the Disney Save because I had so much stuff to update. I needed to update all the turn-ons and turn-offs, the family dynamics, the romance systems in terms of polyamory, things like that. A lot of stuff that has been patched into The Sims over the last like 6 months, and from expansion packs as well, that I did have to kind of ignore as I trekked through Oasis Springs. But now that it's all available in the game, you have to add it in, fix it, change it. I did update all of my ghost sims so that they have their skill trees and they are coordinated with the new life and death pack. Now that ghost sims are more of like a fully fleshed out occult form with a skill tree and death types and things like that. And it makes adding them into the save so much easier, by the way. Really, really refreshing when I got to add in Mufasa, our newest ghost sim for the save file. Just so much easier to get everything done and link him up and do him the way that he was supposed to be. And that is going to be the end of today's speed build. I hope you guys liked Shrimporium, and let me know what you thought of it down in the comment section below. Stay tuned in the next couple of days for the Oasis Springs World Tour. I am so excited to show everything off for you guys. Lots of Aladdin, Bug's Life, Good Dinosaur, and all that stuff to show off very soon, as well as our new world renos and our new worlds to come with Ravenwood coming up in the next few months here. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below, or the one at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will talk to you all in the next one.